before I was even really a preferred vendor at any of the venues, what I was focusing on was just creating really valuable content. Like if you're a couple and you're looking to get married and you come to my blog, I want to be the most valuable resource that you've ever found, specifically for planning a local wedding. Every year I did a huge how to plan your wedding in Kitchener-Waterloo guide, and it did very, very, very well. It organically did really well. And then if I put some dollars into paid ads for it, it did even better. So I would say that was probably the key for me.
Hey, welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Raymond Hatfield, and in this episode, we talk to wedding photographer Taylor Jackson about how much work goes into making weddings look easy. But first, the Beginner Photography Podcast is brought to you by CloudSpot. Simplify your business with studio management, organize clients, send professional contracts, automate invoices, payments, and more. Keeping track of everything just got a whole lot easier. Grab your free forever account over at deliverphotos.com and only upgrade when you are ready. Now, if you have searched for anything photography related on YouTube over the past, 5-8 years, you're probably familiar with Taylor Jackson. He has shot more than 1,000 weddings, has more than 600,000 subscribers on YouTube, where he posts, he said, over 80 full wedding days, like behind the scenes. So he mounts a GoPro on his camera and takes you with him to a wedding day. And he's a frequent traveler to places like Iceland, Japan, and probably anywhere else that has an Outback steakhouse. He's a busy dude. And today he talks about how he's able to do it all, from workflows to efficiency, client communication, outsourcing certain work, what to outsource, what not to outsource, and networking for bookings. He has streamlined his whole process and operation. And it's fascinating to hear his approach and how he prioritizes his workload in this somewhat unconventional conversation with Taylor Jackson. So let's get into it. Taylor, I want to read something from your website. Is that all right? Can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So on your website, it says there's like a timeline of your journey through photography. And it says, March 2006, a friend asked if I would shoot their wedding on 2 weeks' notice. It sounded fun. I charged them my standard rate of $200. 2007, I ramped up all my marketing to find and attract my ideal clients. That year, I booked over 30 weddings, totaling over $60,000, which was enough to quit my job at the Outback Steakhouse. So
Yeah.
The question is, like, you left a lot out there, right? There's a big gap between March of 2006. Can you give me like a 30,000 foot overview of what changed for you? Was it like an education thing, or was it like a mindset thing?
I was always doing photography. I was doing concerts and band promos. So that's why I had a camera and I had the technical abilities. Fortunately, a lot of the concert photography things and learning to use off-camera flash and like crappy basement venues really does make the wedding transition a lot easier. You've solved all the technical problems and everything is just easier. So I had no real technical worries about it. I knew that I could probably do the wedding. I hadn't been to a wedding, which was maybe the scariest part because I think I was a ring bearer when I was like 6. And then the next wedding I went to, I was hired. So I didn't know the flow of the day, which was a little bit scary. So that kind of solved that for me. I realized that this was definitely a possibility for a career. The issue with concerts and band photography was that while I love it and I had so much fun doing it, the paycheck wasn't really there, at least in kind of my small town here in Canada. Whereas there did seem to be a wedding market. So I figured if I wanted to make money on my camera, that I pretty much had to go into weddings. I think I was also at the time in 2006, the magazine industry was still kind of alive, but not really. And there was like National Geographic wasn't calling anyone up, maybe at that time, but not a few years after, to like send them on cool trips and to document. And I kind of saw that weddings were hopefully an evergreen solution to me making money and running my own business. I think one of the keys for me was that I wanted to basically be my own boss. It was, I did a 9-to-5 job for co-op. I went to school for computer programming of all things. And I did a co-op job and I went and I sat at a desk from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. every single day. And I did not enjoy that. It was not a thing for me. And I was fortunate to learn that in college. And by that point, I hadn't racked up a lot of expenses. My car payment was pretty much like zero because I was driving like a 95 Ford Taurus. My rent was like $400 a month or something ridiculous because we were in a shared combination. And I was able to basically put all my effort into marketing this. And as long as I was going to be making like maybe $3,000 a month on it, I could support my life, which seems crazy now. But that was kind of that college time. I spent, I would say, probably the entire year on my website. And the problem when you make your own website is that you keep remaking it over and over again, and you have no idea if it's working or not. You keep revisiting your pricing. It's like, is my pricing wrong? Is that why people aren't inquiring? It turned out basically that I just didn't have the portfolio required to at least get in the door with most couples. So I went out and I just started creating my own portfolio. Over that year, I would pretty much trade if my friend's band wanted promo photos rather than charging them for it, I would ask the members of the band if we could do a shoot with their partner. So outside the next day or a week after, whatever, we would go out and we would do a couple shoot. So my portfolio was just all couples that I had met through the music industry. And that was enough to at least kind of give me some cool factor. I think also when you're starting, you kind of get that it's you're brand new and people feel like they've discovered this uncovered gem or something like that, which a lot of my couples felt that they're like, why are you so much less than all of these other people? It's like, well, I've done one wedding. And yeah, so it worked out really well. I was also fortunately kind of at the age where all of my friends were about to get married. And it was very easy for referrals when you're like 18, 19, 21, 22. There's kind of that space from, I would say, maybe 23 to like 30, where at least thinking back a few years, that a lot of couples would get engaged and get married. So it was a somewhat easier time, I think. If I was trying to start right now, I wouldn't have the benefit of those few years. So if you are listening to this, you're watching this and you're a younger photographer and you're like, I'm 16, like, I don't know if like a couple's going to hire me. The truth is it's going to be weird because there's this reverse age gap and your couples are going to be 24, 25, 26, and you're going to be 16, 17. And it's going to be a bit weird communication wise, but if you do great work, they'll be happy with you. And it was, I think one of the fortunate things was that I started so young and I was ready for that time period where weddings just started kind of going absolutely crazy.
Of course, of course. So when you talked about like you went out, you realized that your portfolio was lacking, right?
Yeah.
I guess one, like, how did you know that? Because it's like when you get into photography, you think that all your photos are great. All of your friends think that your photos are great. How did you know, like, oh, my portfolio isn't there? And then how did you, I don't know, systematically decide what it is that you needed to capture to build that portfolio?
Yeah, I think I was definitely fell into the trap of trying to put everything that I did on my website. And every educational thing that I read was like, you have to niche down and you have to pick something very specific and be that thing. And while I don't believe that's exactly 100% true, I think that you can obviously be a wedding photographer and do family photography and do travel photography and have a commercial side of your business. Maybe that lives on a different website. But it was, I guess I realized that at least I had to have a dominant part of my website be dedicated to weddings and to be dedicated to couples. So that was kind of the key for me, that it was very hard to sell wedding photography packages with a bunch of concert images. It worked sometimes, weirdly, but it was, I would say, kind of the thing that I saw as a gap. I also am very introverted and quite not that great with communication. So talking with couples and actually posing them and being confident with that was also a challenge. So I wanted experience doing that as well. I was kind of fine if it was my friends. We would go out, we'd do a shoot, we'd have some fun. But then as soon as it was a couple that I hadn't met yet, that communication barrier was very, very challenging for me. And I think it came down to just lack of confidence in knowing what I wanted to ask of them. And once I started doing more shoots, I feel like my confidence came up and I became a significantly better photographer, especially on wedding days. Yeah.
About this posing thing, right? Like that's another thing that a lot of photographers struggle with. And as you said, kind of like you just get better at it with more experience. But there also is like a bit of an eye as far as like how people look, right? Did you go through any sort of education, or were you just like looking at other people's photos? How did you know how to post people?
At the time, there was no YouTube. So now YouTube has made the startup process a lot better. At the time, it was like Jerry Kionis was doing some video content and Chase Jarvis. And that was like it. There was like two people making videos. And I think that they were getting some, I think Chase Jarvis has talked about that he got actual death threats for revealing the secrets of the commercial photography industry. So those were my only two video references, really. And neither of them really did the style of work that I saw myself doing. So a lot of it was just kind of self-discovery and looking at other work and looking at magazines and like skate magazines and other concert photographers and seeing how bands were posed. And I took a lot of that into my early work. And I basically just took my couples on their wedding day and posed them as though they were kind of a two-person band. That was kind of the beginning. I've changed and evolved a little bit since that, but that was the starting. And it was pretty much I would say it all came down to kind of that. And then also playing around a little bit with lighting and getting creative. I weirdly come from more of a gear background than an art background, but I got really big into off-camera flash for a long time and overused it, I would say, looking back now. But it was something that kind of inspired me to go out and create something a little bit different. And it definitely made my work stand out or at least be different than what everyone else in town was doing.
How many couples do you think you've created the perfect album photo for?
Oh, in that day, it was pretty much every couple. We would find like the grungiest locations outside. There's a few kind of like pretty sketchy like takeout restaurants
Those
in
are the best.
our core here. Yeah. So we would shoot out back those. So we knew like most of the staff there would be like, oh, hello, back again, huh? Okay. It's weird. Stop coming here, please. And yeah, so I'm going to say I probably have like 20 or 30, like pretty good band photos.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then I got more into, so I live like an hour out of Toronto. And then once I got into Toronto, the markets are weirdly kind of separated. And once I got into Toronto and started shooting there, I had access to way more grungy backgrounds and I was adding like textures to my photos and stuff. It was a time.
It was a time for sure. For sure. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit here. When I think you ask the average person, like, tell me a little bit about Taylor Jackson. Like, they're going to list, obviously, you shoot weddings, you're a travel photographer, you have a very popular YouTube channel, and you're also like an educator and you go to like every conference, right? And I think most photographers listening would think to themselves, I would love just one of those, right? And you do all of those things. And from the outside, you make it look easy. So my question for you is it easy?
I'll kind of partition it out as best I can. So for weddings, in the beginning, I think it's a very much full-time thing that if you're thinking about that all the time, you will be more successful significantly faster. But at some point, it doesn't necessarily become on autopilot, but most of at least the way I felt it, my creativity just kind of wasn't there. So I was always looking for different things that I could do that would inspire me to pick up my camera. One of the things I started doing was I started doing videos as well. So I would do the regular wedding photography coverage. And then in kind of like the early, maybe 2010, I started trying to also do some video coverage. So I would do like a 1-minute kind of mini highlight for my couples while also doing photography and surprise them with it. And then by like 2012, 2013, I feel like it started to become a staple and I was doing kind of a 3-minute highlight. And at that point, my bookings kind of, I would say, skyrocketed. But within the bounds of I had everything outsourced already. So I wasn't editing my own photos. I wasn't editing my own videos. It was just that I would go to the wedding day. I would 50% of the time do an engagement shoot and have a few emails back and forth with the couple. But for the most part, I was kind of working like that 1 day a week. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous dream, but it kind of did come down to that. I think it's also the couples that I attracted as well. I always came into photography and the industry as a business from the sense that I want to unlock as much time freedom as I can. So maybe there was some kind of pre-planning in that built itself into my business. But yeah, I was working pretty much like the Saturday or maybe a Friday, Saturday, Sunday if it was June or September. And the rest of the week, I really did kind of have off. I was uploading galleries and just kind of finalizing images, but my finalizing of images is pretty much just look through everything and make sure it's all good. And that kind of became, I guess, the main income of my life. And then I started adding on other things that I wanted to eventually get paid for. So one of those was YouTube and doing travel content. We started doing a travel show. I think we actually did a podcast about this like way long time ago. Yeah. So yeah, we started doing a travel show, which was kind of a personal project that I wanted to do, but I eventually wanted to hopefully turn a profit on it. And Nikon saw some of the episodes and we talked and we did 2 seasons of a Nikon travel show. So yeah, kind of full circle and kind of what we weirdly planned. I know you can't plan something like that, but when you started talking to a brand and you're like, well, we want to do this, but we'd love to do this with your cameras. And we've already done proof of concept of it and it would be the same team running it. And they were very quick to say like, that sounds great. And then when it comes to the education side, it's kind of all built in because I'm usually showing my real life weddings. So it's kind of, I record the wedding and then maybe I do a behind the scenes on the day. Sometimes I just run GoPro and talk about it later. If I'm doing photography and also highlight video and also doing behind the scenes and also trying to talk to the camera, it's too many things.
So many things.
And I feel like it actually takes away from the job that I've been hired there to do. So a lot of time I'll just run GoPro on it and then I'll do voiceover or something in the studio after to kind of talk a little bit more. And then, yeah, there's some other secret jobs I have too, but those are kind of the main ones I would say. And yeah, it kind of goes in seasons where summer, I would say where I'm in Canada, Northern Hemisphere. So like I would say May until maybe October, I'm pretty much full-time wedding photography up here. And then usually November 1st, I stop taking weddings. So this took so long for me to be able to actually do, because when people are like, we'd like to pay you money to do our wedding, and you actually say no to it, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And I take off from November usually until May 1st, unless something very interesting comes along. I'm open to unique and interesting opportunities, but my regular wedding days that I do here, I just don't book them in the winter. And then we go and we travel and we do YouTube content. And that's also when all the conferences kind of happen in that time period as well. So that's why I'm able to go to those. And I'm speaking at a lot of them this year and next year, which is kind of fun and also terrifying simultaneously. But yeah, that's the weird business that I've made, I guess.
What's terrifying about going to these conferences?
Oh, just if you have to speak in front of like 300 or 1,000 people.
Just because they're real like people, because you have to like make eye contact with them?
Yeah, like for video, I have final edit over everything. I go out, I shoot something. I could never be like a person that vlogs in public. I'm never talking to a camera, like walking around the streets. My brain just can't handle that. So I'm recording things. I know I have final edit. So if I screw things up or whatever it is, I can fix it. And then I have final edit on that video to put up online, and I get to do everything kind of myself. Whereas when it's a public space, I have less of that. And I wouldn't consider myself a great public speaker. I'm getting better, but it's taken a lot of time. I think I did my first, maybe like 2011. I think I did a WPPI, like a little 5-minute Ignite thing where your slides automatically advance. And it was not great. And I think there was like 5,000 people in that room. It was really big.
Gosh.
And it was not good. And looking back at that, I'm like, okay, it's cool that I've gotten a lot better. I think I also know the topic a little bit more. In 2011, I knew what I was doing, but maybe I didn't know why I was doing it when it comes to photography and the decisions I was making. Now, watching back the tape of every single wedding I've done for the past 10 years and making a video about it, I get to learn a lot as well and see the things I missed and hopefully like give myself more time to understand why I did things, because on the wedding day, it's fast paced and it's efficiency. And yeah, so it's nice to be able to kind of sit back and watch that, I guess.
Yeah, of course. It's funny because it's like hearing, at least talking with a lot of the speakers that just imaging this year, that was a common thing. You know, everybody's like, it's weird to get up in front of that many people and they're all watching you. Even like Seth Miranda, he's like, I do this all the time. Like I do this day in and day out and do this stuff with lights, but doing it in front of all these people, it's wild. So I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I think that it'd be weird to like do a podcast in front of people, even though it's essentially the exact same thing. And just like you and I having a conversation here. Just to know that there's like all those eyes, it does change the concept. Not to freak you out or anything. Yeah. Sorry, it didn't mean to do that to you.
Live podcast, next Imaging USA.
Let's go. When we get back to the talking about weddings, talking about efficiency, as you and I know, weddings start much before the actual wedding day, right? Because you got to initially get those clients. What are you doing? Let's talk about the lead process first. How are you trying to build efficiencies into gathering leads and getting your name out there?
So there's certain times of the year that leads tend to come in a lot stronger than others. And I feel like I used to say it was January, and then it became February. And then this year it's like maybe the first week of April and the last week of March, which has weirdly become my booking season, I guess. I'm not sure why it shifted like that, but it has. So now that I can identify that, I know when to do all my paid ads, so that I do kind of a slow drip, like $5 a day all year, but I know to ramp up and to make some sort of video content or something that's very specific to the local area that I want to shoot in and put that as a paid ad and promote that. The other thing that I did, so now I guess to be like full transparency, when you're in the industry for like almost 20 years, it becomes a little bit easier to organically get leads because you're probably a preferred vendor at a number of venues, and it does become a lot easier. When I was first, at least before I was even really a preferred vendor at any of the venues, what I was focusing on was just creating really valuable content for a local wedding. If you're a couple and you're looking to get married and you come to my blog, I want to be the most valuable resource that you've ever found, specifically for planning a local wedding. I think every year I did a huge, like how to plan your wedding in Kitchener-Waterloo guide. And it did very, very, very well. It organically did really well. And then if I put some dollars into paid ads for it, it did even better. So I would say that was probably the key for me. The other thing it does is when you do a how to plan a wedding in your local area, you now have a reason to go and talk to every single venue that you're not a preferred vendor at and start that relationship and ask them questions. Because like, how many people does this room seat? The questions that no photographers are really asking them. And if you're all of a sudden on kind of almost the marketing side of a venue, they identify that, I think, better than just someone that creates content at their venue. If you kind of come at it with a marketing mindset and you're like, where can I help you? In Canada, December, January, February, people do get married, but they need more marketing material for that. So I identified that pretty quickly, that if I do some shoots in the winter and I showcase their properties in the winter, those images are 1,000 times more valuable than summer images for them, because they have a ton of summer content and they don't have any great winter content. And winter wedding days are hard and challenging because usually the ceremony is like pressed up against sunset and it's cold. But if you do a styled shoot and you get out there at 12 noon where there's still some light for a couple hours, maybe a little bit later than that, maybe 2 p.m., and you can actually shoot on your own terms, it just creates a significantly better marketing piece for them. So I think doing that, wedding guides, putting together styled shoots, connecting with other vendors was also really, really important. And just kind of immersing yourself in the industry. I'm going to say even to this day, pretty much all of my good friends are all in some way connected to the wedding industry, or they're running their own kind of a similar business, like a social media company or something like that. So yeah, I think it's surrounding yourself with the people to kind of put yourself in the headspace and know that this is going to be a long term, that this is not just like I'm going to get one friendship and I'm going to make it next year. It's like really kind of immersing yourself in the industry and learning how to create valuable content for those people as well. That's also a way that I probably forged those friendships early on, was that I had something of value to bring to them. Maybe we would do a shoot, maybe we would do a quick headshot day or something like that, or branding photos, and it would begin there and eventually become proper friendships.
Are you focusing on a certain type of vendor? Like, is it specifically venues and planners, or is it everybody to like florists and caterers as well?
It's kind of, I would say, more general. So like pretty much everyone. I would say my early friends were just, it happened to be someone that owned a dress shop. And venues were always like kind of hard to crack because they're a lot of, at least kind of like a florist is going to probably be one person or maybe one or two people, and maybe they have some staff to help out. But venues are a little bit different because there's usually an owner that you've probably never met. And then there's probably like a GM, and there's probably maybe one or two people in marketing, but then also their role is sales. So it's a little bit more challenging to just kind of figure out who to talk to at those places. But over time, when you do go to weddings and you shoot at their venues and you talk to them, maybe that does become a friendship, a relationship outside of just the venue itself. And at that point, I think it's pretty good. My wife, Lindsay, is also a wedding photographer, and she does family photos for, I think, pretty much all of the staff for maybe 10 different venues.
Oh, wow.
So obviously that's a positive thing for her, that she's going to be top of mind, that it's not only that she's on the preferred list, she's kind of like number one on the salesperson that's sitting in the room with a couple, number one on their sales, or number one on their mind for who to actually recommend from this list of like 25 photographers or whatever it might be. So, yeah.
Getting on preferred vendors list is obviously like an important thing, right? It's easier to get recommended. And I've heard that you say that like you try to shoot the majority of your weddings like relatively close to you, even though I think a lot of people looking at your YouTube channel probably mostly see like, you know, helicopter on top of a mountain and things like that. Is shooting weddings close to you, is that by design as well? Or is that just kind of happenstance based on your SEO stuff?
It was very intentional. As I mentioned, I used to shoot a lot in Toronto, and shooting downtown is not a happy place for my brain. I don't have space. It like parking sucks. You got to go to like 5 different venues. There's a hotel you got to find parking at, then a church you got to find parking at, and then a venue you got to find parking at. The venues that I enjoy shooting the most are the ones that kind of just do everything in one spot on site. So I've tried a little bit harder to cultivate relationships at those places. I also feel like I create better work there too. I'm going to say maybe 5 years ago, maybe like 2018, 2017, I made a pretty conscious effort that I was no longer going to be taking weddings pretty much with like outside of maybe a 1 hour radius of where I live. And that's made me a lot happier, that I can wake up. I'm not dreading going downtown for weddings. Every day I wake up for a wedding, I'm excited to go. And I'm usually like 2 hours early because I'm that excited to go. So yeah, it was definitely by design. I would say there's probably maybe 10 venues that I shoot at pretty much all year, which might creatively sound terrible for somebody, but I don't mind shooting the same venues over and over again. They're always a little bit different. Conditions are different. Sunsets are different. Colors, But yeah, I find comfort in knowing that I'm going in and I'm kind of like not an office job, but there's that comfortable element where I know a contingency for everything. And I think that that's also something that my couples enjoy as well, that they appreciate that I'm at their venue pretty often, that I know the staff and that I kind of figure out the best possible situation if it does happen to rain, that I'm a pretty credible person to kind of make some quick decisions. So yeah, it was definitely by design and I'm very happy about it. But again, it's very hard to say no to leads when they come in and you're like, oh no, too far. I'm not going to do it. Yeah. And then the flip side is that if it requires an airplane, I'm usually also interested. So it's like within the 1 hour radius of home or airplane to a location. Yeah.
I totally get the, you go to this place all the time, you're very familiar with it. It does make it a whole lot easier. It's just not as much like mental stress, right? Like it's the Steve Jobs wore the black turtleneck every day because it's one less thing that he had to think about, right? You go there every day, it's one less thing that you have to think about. But then there's photographers like, as you know, like Sam Hurd loves being in a new place because it opens up these like creative juices of things that, maybe you've never seen before. Do you pick a mix of these places so that you can get both? Does that question even make sense? I feel like that was a pretty bad question.
Yeah, no, I feel like an interesting thing with Sam was that if you force him to shoot at the same venue every single weekend, he would give you a completely different photo set. Maybe the ceremony would be consistent, but the couple's portraits would always be completely different. I feel like I don't really work that way. I'm very happy to kind of reuse locations and to just kind of do the best of what I did last week and then add a few things. So every week that I shoot at that specific venue, my work will get a little bit better and that couple will probably get a slightly better couple session from it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm quite happy doing that. It's my couples. It's their only wedding day. I'm also usually it doesn't happen, but I'm also very aware that if it's a referral from somebody that was in the wedding party and maybe they're getting married at the same venue. I've had this a few times with family that they just had a connection with a hotel here. So all three of the sisters all got married. I make it a very conscious effort to do something completely different in that case.
Sure.
But if they're disconnected couples, I usually find that the more efficient at least the photo process can be for the couple and for the family and for the wedding party, the more efficient that can be, the happier they are. And by shooting there over and over and over again, you really kind of get that efficiency dialed and you can do a couple session in 6 or 7 minutes and get them back to the wedding day, which I think they really appreciate.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. Everybody feels weird in front of a camera anyway. So the shorter you can make it, the better. So then when you say travel to a new location, do you spend time trying to get familiar with it, or are you comfortable enough with weddings where you can just kind of go with the flow?
I'm usually comfortable enough. And I also know that even if I do scout the day before, maybe I'll go and I'll make sure the sun's not going to be in the worst spot ever for the ceremony. So the next day I can kind of be like, hey, can we set up 3 feet to the left under this tree? So one of them isn't in the blinding sun and one is in the shade. I'll have a kind of a quick look like that. But then also I know that the conditions are usually going to be completely different the next day. So yeah, I'll go for a walk around. I'll maybe find a few locations that I think are interesting and I'll keep those in my mind. And if we have time to get to them, awesome. If not, I'm usually pretty good with just kind of finding good light. That's always what I'm looking for first, is if I can find good light and an average background and the couple looks amazing and the background is kind of like mid, I'm fine with that. But if I have found an amazing background location and I'm trying to make it work with a couple, and then maybe I have to bring an off-camera light to compensate for some lighting that's just not going my way and they don't end up looking as good in that picture, I would say that's a less valuable photo for them overall, especially when I'm just kind of the one picking random locations at their venue.
Yeah.
So yeah, always looking for light first.
Yeah. Let's go back for a minute, back to the kind of the booking process, because emails are things that I get questions about all the time. Like, what do you email your clients in between the year that they've paid you, that they've booked you, and like their wedding date? So how do you handle that? Do you have an efficient process, or are you emailing them weekly with updates?
So an interesting thing happened. So I'm a part owner of a company called Focal, which builds websites and does some other things. And when I joined them, Lachlan, the CEO, was like, you need to list your pricing public. And I was like, what? That's crazy. I could never do that. And then I did it. And I realized the couples that I attract now don't care for any additional communication. So it used to be that I would go back and forth and I would send kind of like, hey, here's 5 things you need to know about getting ready for your engagement session. And now my couples come in, they hit the request a book button and I get an email. I would say 50% of the time we do a call. No in-person meetings. I haven't done an in-person meeting since like 2020 now, I guess. And the process is way more simple. And I would say back and forth email from booking a couple to the wedding day is maybe like 14 email total. So like
Wow.
7 from them, 7 from me. So I'm very, very happy that that was something that Lachlan forced me into. But yeah, he was like, basically the way our websites work is that like, if you do this, you'll get bookings because like everything kind of funnels to that. And the idea I think for him was that it's kind of like the car, I don't know, like the used car lot or maybe new car lot. It could be a new car where your couple, when they walk in, if they know exactly what they want, they know the exact like trim model, they know everything that they want of the car. Like they go in and they're like, can I have this? And then there's this weird sales process. It's just not so good. So now it seems like the more streamlined I make it, the more streamlined my couples become. And I don't know if that's like maybe like that I'm training them in some way that like we don't need to communicate that much and it's fine. But yeah, my communication has come down drastically. So it's pretty much like if they do an engagement session, which is again, like becoming increasingly more rare for me, we will kind of schedule a time usually in those first few email and pick a time. And then I'll send them like hey, excited to meet up at this exact location at this time again. See you tomorrow. After that, I send them the gallery from that. And then it's usually like a month before the wedding when final payments also due that I just kind of ask for the final schedule. And again, there's comfort in working at the same venues because I know pretty much the schedule that if their ceremony is at 4 p.m., I know that I'm probably starting at noon and I'm going to be there until 10. So yeah, like going through the schedule to make sure there's no kind of red flags in it. But other than that, it's pretty fine tuned now, which is kind of nice.
Right.
I appreciate that. I would say, yeah, like in terms of email, it's probably like a 500% decrease since I changed my pricing on my site.
So then let me ask, do you think
crazy?
That is crazy. Do you think that that's possible because of how established you are as a wedding photographer in your location? Or do you think that a new photographer could implement putting their pricing on their website and seeing the exact same thing?
I think it's going to be location specific, perhaps. And I'm not going to pretend that I know every single market in the world. I guess I should have prefaced that all with it has worked for me specifically here. I think one thing that I do have that I've been in the industry for a long time is basically trust as well. And also doing all this YouTube stuff. People know that I exist. I feel like a lot of the early follow-ups I would get from couples in my younger days as a photographer were pretty much people pinging me to be like, you still exist. Our wedding's still on your calendar, right? And it was just kind of like unnecessary communication. Whereas now I feel like there's a little bit more trust there. So I think that's probably a key part of it as well. So yeah, I think that if I was younger in the industry, I would be doing as many things as I possibly could to just create as much trust as I possibly could, both on my website and on social media. And if I'm doing like YouTube video content, I'd be showing up to venues and doing venue tours and walking people through kind of what their wedding could look like and maybe involving the venue staff on that as well. Those would be kind of those things that I would be doing so people trust me and maybe communicate a little bit less, but then also are a heck of a lot more likely to book, which would be kind of more key at that time.
Right.
But yeah, I ran my like starting at rate on my website from like 2006 or 2005 until pretty much I joined with Focal, and then that's been very nice time. So yeah, it worked for me. But again, that's I don't know everyone's exact market and exactly what's going to happen if you try that. So maybe split test if you can.
Yeah. Do it for 1 month, turn it off for the next. It just might be scary, I think, for a lot of new photographers to know that their emails are going to take a big dip, right? By posting all of your pricing out there. So I appreciate you sharing that just to try it out. Let's move forward to the actual day of the wedding. We've conquered the booking process, the time up until the wedding. Let's talk about the wedding. If efficiency is the goal for you at a wedding, and you're doing 2 jobs most of the time, being a photographer and videographer, doing the hybrid coverage. How do you, like, some people show up with a ton of gear to a wedding for every possible situation. Some people show up with only, 35, 85, and then that's it. As far as gear goes for you, what do you bring into a wedding to ensure that you can capture it all?
So I'll also say when we do video, we're only doing highlight coverage. So we're basically making them a music video. So we're not doing like full like tripoded 3-cam ceremony.
Are you worried about audio at all?
No audio typically, unless they really want it. I discovered something weird with audio when I included it one time as a bonus that people don't like the sound of their voice, and it's a little jarring whenever the video opens with their voice. They're like, I don't know if I like that. I realized that maybe that's not a value add, that's maybe if they didn't want it, maybe that's a value they don't want. So yeah, we just basically make a music video. So I shoot everything with the same camera. I just switch between photo and video all day. And I bring everything in. It's like a P Design, whatever the messenger bag is, and everything fits in there. I bring 2 cameras. I bring the Tamron 35 to 150 has been like amazing for ceremonies. And you can obviously like shoot the entire day with it, but it's just crazy that one lens could just kind of like basically do everything that I need. So I'll have that for whatever part of the day I need it for. And then other parts of the day, I'm usually either on a 35 or an 85, pretty much all day. 85 for most of the reception, 35 for getting ready, maybe some portraits. And then I have a 20 in my bag as well as just a safety in case it's always a cake cut. It's in like the stupidest spot and you're pressed up against the wall and you just need a wider lens. So I have a 20 for that. I'll use that for 5 photos of the day. Unless the party is crazy, then I'll use it for more. But yeah, that's it. So how many is that? 4 lenses?
Something like that. Real quick though, what do you mean if the reception is crazy, you'll use the 20 more?
Just like if the crazier the party gets, the wider I usually get. If there's 5 people slow dancing on the dance floor, I'll probably be at 85 to make it look pretty. But if it gets like crazy and everyone's on the dance floor and it's a proper party right off the start, I'll usually get a little bit wider to kind of just capture all of that. I feel like it just like, I guess it's also comes down to the couple that if you know it's going to be a party, that I will probably want to capture that a little bit more. And I might do some flash with drag shutter. Whereas if it's a more calm beginning to the dancing section of the day, I'll usually go kind of bounce flash and make things look a little bit, I don't know, maybe slightly prettier than real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So what about lighting gear? Like you just said, you bring in multiple flashes, you got all the modifiers, or what does it look like?
Yeah. Usually one flash. So I also have backups of all of this in my car as well.
Sure.
So I'm usually one flash, speed light, and I think I'm on the Godox V1. Might check out the V Pro, the new one. I'm on that pretty much all day, but with the high ISO capabilities of cameras now, and the fact that I'm also shooting photo and video, for if my settings are set up for off-camera flash and I'm switching between photo and video, it's a little clunky. I could probably do second camera as photo camera and one as video camera, but I find that most of the venues, at least that I'm shooting at, the quality of light is good, just sometimes it's very dim. So sometimes I'll have to be up around like 10,000 ISO, which I think is fine with current camera models. If I was shooting on my Nikon D750, maybe I wouldn't push it that far, but I'm pretty happy to go ambient until there's just like a stupid pot light, like right above the podium or something. We'll just move the podium actually. We won't change the day too much, but if it's a 3 to 4 foot move of something that doesn't really matter, we'll try to set that up. And then if we are doing kind of that full rolling coverage of speeches, we'll have a Stella Pro LED light. So it's just a constant light that we'll set up kind of as a spotlight in the back. We'll also use it sometimes for dancing as well, if it's a very, very dark dance floor. But yeah, I would say every third wedding, I'm probably using flash or some sort of off-camera light. And then the other ones, the other 2, I'm pretty much going ambient all day. Again, you need the lenses to allow you to do that. Some nice 1.4 or 1.8 glass. But yeah, I've been pretty happy overall.
So you said every 2 or 3 weddings you'll use flash. That's just because the quality of light is different between venues or weddings, time of day?
Or like a getting ready location, maybe it's like really side lit and there's just a bunch of like incandescent lights on and it's like really kind of mixed light. But if everything is consistent and good, I know the limits. So maybe test and see what your comfort level is. AI has a lot of good solutions for reducing noise now, which is nice. But yeah, I would say that most of my weddings, I'm pretty much ambient for the entire day. Maybe the dancing part of the day. At that point, I have to bring it a flash at most weddings. So maybe I lied. I'm sorry.
I got it.
At that point, I'll usually have a flash. But then also we're typically only there for first dances. And if they have like a nice lighting setup, like the DJ brought some proper stuff that he kind of just does my 3-point lighting for me, like that's awesome. I'll take that. And that's also what the day looked like as well, which I do my best to be conscious of, that if they did the lighting design and they talked with the venue and this is how they wanted it set up, I don't want to override all that just to make more light and to bring my ISO down. So I'm going to do my best to kind of incorporate the day that they've spent the past like year or two putting together. I'm going to do my best to kind of capture that for them.
Yeah, of course. So in a wedding day, would you say, how many photos do you think you take in a full wedding day?
Thanks to the switch to mirrorless, I've doubled. So I used to be around like maybe like, I would say 4,000 would be like a high day. And now 4,000 is like a regular day, 4,000 images. And I will typically deliver somewhere around like 600, 700. And the problem now with mirrorless is that everything is so like bang on perfect that it's like almost challenging to get rid of stuff. But I'm a little more conscious to just be like, I don't need 5 of this scene when this one is clearly the best photo. Same with family photos as well. And AI culling helps out with that any blinks just disappear. Any kind of softer photos can also disappear pretty quickly. So yeah, probably 4,000 to 7,000 images on a wedding day, I would say. And my weddings are typically about 8 hours. So if we're doing like a multi-day event, obviously it's going to be different, but kind of that 8 hour day usually fits into kind of that frame.
Yeah. How important is it for you to get it right in camera versus let me just get the shot and I can do whatever I need to in post afterwards?
I shoot video too, so I have to get it right in camera. I have no leverage. I have some, but I can't change white balance. I'm not shooting raw video. So I would say my camera is pretty much always set up that I would say most weddings, this also comes from doing over 1,000 weddings in my career. I would say that most weddings, if I just delivered the JPEGs, I would be pretty happy with that.
Mm.
So I shoot everything pretty much as like final delivery. I also shoot all my video with a burnt in look, which I'm sure cinema people makes them cringe a bit.
They'll get over it.
But I just shoot everything exactly kind of as I want it to be. And then I think that comes from, at least on the photo side, I think that came from that my offsite backup used to be JPEGs only because my internet sucked and I couldn't upload raw files and I didn't want to convert to DNG as an upload. So for the first like 10 years of my business, I basically had JPEGs as my backup that were offsite. And I wanted those to be deliverable if I ever needed them. So I shoot raw and JPEG in my camera. And I think I was shooting like the fine quality JPEGs. And yeah, there's been times that couples will reach out from like 2008 and they'll be like, hey, do you sell our wedding photos? And I'll be like, yeah, they are in a drive, but like, what do you need? And if it's like, oh, we just need like this one photo, I'll check out the JPEG that's still backed up online. I'm like, that's fine. And then I'll maybe add a little something extra to just kind of fit what I think I was probably doing at that time. I've been pretty happy. I guess it's also like a fun little game. Try to get it like as right as you can in camera.
Right.
Makes you happier. And if your couples happen to catch a glance of it, also happier, I think.
Yeah. There's I once had a photo that I knew I had to intentionally underexpose because there was so much like beautiful sky detail. And their reaction was so great in the photo, but they were dramatically underexposed. But when I showed them the back of the camera, they were like, oh, like, not knowing the power of editing and what you could do and bringing up the shadows in post. But that reaction was bad. So yeah, getting it right in camera, it's always good to show them the good stuff.
That would be a situation though. Like if you are technically in a kind of boxed into a corner, that you have to shoot like that, then yeah. But again, like AI editing will just fix that and make it look like however you fixed it last time.
Exactly.
So it's pretty nice.
Yeah. Knowing what can be done, not everybody fully understands that. So let's go ahead and talk about editing then, because I know that editing, interestingly enough, I remember in our last conversation, you said that like very early on, you knew that you were going to hire an editor for all of your photos. And like, to me, that's about as efficient as it gets, right? Tell me about the decision to do that and kind of where that process is now.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. I began using a company and then I think I switched to a real human being. She was like, hey, I'm open for editing services. And then she got kind of over capacity. And I went back to another company that was just like, basically at that point, I was able to upload DNG files and they would edit from those. And that lasted for a few years. I think I bounced between all of the major like outsourcing official companies in the wedding industry. And then I eventually went back to using a real human being because it was just a little bit easier because he was my roommate. So that was very nice and very easy. And now I'm using Imagine, which has been kind of like the easiest, that I don't have to send files anywhere. I guess I send files to their service and it's just done though. But usually the night of the wedding, I would say my wedding process now is that I will do the wedding and I will come home. And by that point, I've usually sat down at dinner and I've actually culled through most of my images. So I've culled all the way to dinner. And as my images are loading into my computer here, I go through and I select the last maybe 2 hours of coverage. And by that point, I put them in a Lightroom catalog and then send them to Imagine and go to sleep. And by the time I wake up in the morning, the process only takes like 10 minutes, but I just go to sleep. I wake up in the morning and I finalize the gallery. And now my offsite backup is a finalized gallery, which makes me so happy. So yeah, there's positives and negatives to everything. I think working with a real human being is very nice, especially when there's trust and you know that it's a final gallery. Whereas there'll still be some tweaks that I might have to make on my images when they come back now. But yeah, I think I was hesitant at the beginning. I'm like, there's no way that this pattern recognition system could just figure it out and just like edit for me. And it did. So yeah.
That is a scary thing, right? To give up control. And I know that a lot of newer photographers are, I guess there's this idea that if you outsource your editing, you're removing part of your creative process, like who you are as a photographer.
Yeah.
But also like from having shot weddings for a number of years, like I understand there's also like a business element to it. Talk to me about that. Like, share with me, as somebody who has outsourced your editing for years, was it hard for you to give up that control as well?
I think so. I feel like now it's almost come back that I have more control over it because I do see the final gallery, but in Lightroom, and I export it so I can actually go through and change things out. Whereas before I would just be getting JPEGs back and that would be the final gallery. And if I had any tweaks, I could kind of help, or like I might have to go back to the raw file and it was a little clunky. So I would say overall, I feel like I'm kind of more in it now. Also, the profile that you build is based on like your past editing. So it's basically any way that you would have edited a photo. It will just see like, okay, the last 5 times you were in a backlit situation, this is exactly where you put the exposure and the white balance, and it will just sync that new file that it's seeing for the first time to what you've done in the past. So I think that's also kind of helpful because it's based on my edits. So it's not like I'm just like clicking like an auto button in Lightroom and it's just going. It's something that I've spent the past like bunch of years building, or at least building the content that the system interprets. But yeah, I would say I'm fine with it, but there's probably like a 1-year learning curve, or maybe a 1-year window where you're almost kind of forced into it. And if you want to continue to actually have a life outside of your business, if you're shooting like 30, 40, 50 weddings a year, I don't think that you can do that internally. You have to hire someone. And the faster you can get comfortable with that, the faster you are able to spend that time on marketing and actually scale your business and make more money, which allows you to hire maybe more people. Maybe you start hiring associate shooters to deal with the volume because you're so good at marketing and you're now getting thousands of leads a year. Yeah. So I would say that was something that I knew it was going to be a thing. So maybe I set myself up to know that I was going to be okay with it pretty early on. But yeah, it's a huge part of my business, I would say. And the reason I'm able to kind of do all the YouTube stuff and to have a life in the summer as well, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it must be nice to have those. I appreciate you sharing everything that you did today in terms of your whole workflow and sharing why efficiency is important as well as how you're doing it. Because I think getting over the stress of, like, for one, just learning your camera, but then knowing that then you want to get into business and all the things that come along with that. And you got to be all the places, all at once, all the social media profiles everywhere, all the time. It's difficult. So just hearing a little bit about your backstory, I know has really helped me, and I know that it's going to help the guests as well. So Taylor, before I let you go, let us know if, those listening have never heard of you, they have no idea who you are, what it is that you're doing. Where can we find you online?
YouTube's probably the best spot. I have, I think, like 80 full wedding days up there now. So if you are interested in wedding photography, I have you covered, and also on every camera system. So if you're on Nikon, Canon, Sony, Fuji, I got weddings for you up there. And yeah, I would say that's probably the main place, or Instagram. I'm at Taylor Jackson.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Start a conversation. Grow together. That is it for this week. Remember, the more that you shoot today, the better of a photographer you will be tomorrow. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.